You are listening to the Speak Podcast.
The podcast featuring talks from Speak, a public speaking platform for people with ideas and stories.
Produced by Launchpad 516 Studios. Welcome to the Speak Podcast, produced by Launchpad 516 Studios. New episodes available every week on all your favorite podcast platforms.
Speak is a public speaking platform for people with ideas and stories. Each Speak Talk features three key moments: the moment of truth, the moment of transformation, and the moment of impact.
We host pop-up events all over the world, and now we are bringing our talks to your device. Our speakers are stepping onto the stage and into the spotlight, and now onto this podcast.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome to another episode of the Speak Podcast. I'm your host for today, Jason Martin, the engineer and one of the co-leaders here at Speak. Today's episode has an incredible micro-theme titled The Trauma Effect. It's where we look at three of our published speakers and their incredible talks where they encounter some form of trauma, and through perseverance and their moment of transformation, they successfully make it out to the other side. I can't wait to share these incredible three talks with you. So let's dive right in. Our first speaker for today comes from our Speak Seasons event, which took place on December 14, 2023 at our first ever Speak at the Studio event. In Seasons of Transformation, from Paralysis to Empowerment, Barbie Ray shares her compelling journey of overcoming adversity. Struck by a life-changing paralysis, she experiences her own deep winter of hardship and despair. Yet, through her resilience and unwavering spirit, Barbie discovers her inner strength akin to an invincible summer, allowing her to rise above her challenges. Her story is a vivid testament to the power of the human spirit and the transformative potential within each individual. Here's Barbie Ray with Seasons of Transformation, from Paralysis to Empowerment.
Seasons have always been important to me. The seasons in nature, like the seasons of our lives, representing constant change. I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, so I was fortunate to see all four distinct seasons. And I love the green leaves as they transform into the skyline of fiery orange and red and yellow and purple hues of autumn before they fall from the branches and flutter to the ground, making way for the barren, cold Illinois winters. And then the miracle of spring. It brings new life to the desolate ground, followed by the hot, humid summers, which then bring life back to the world, plants, vegetables, and fruit. I was literally born to love seasons. My birth date is March 20th, the first day of spring. Oh, and my blood type, B positive, so I had no choice but to be an optimist, regardless of what was going on. Which is good, because the universe has thrown many challenges my way. We like to joke around and say that I am the Grim Reaper's favorite chew toy. Yeah. I have been struck by lightning. I was attacked by a swarm of bees, which is where I learned I was allergic. And among many other events, I fell down a huge staircase. That was the beginning of my longest winter. I remember it like it was yesterday. It, like me, began in the spring, a puppy chewy at the top of the stairs, and my boot heel, which managed to catch that rawhide and send me flying. Now, I've always wanted to fly, and great, I can. My problem is I can't land, because I crashed with a whack at the bottom of the staircase, right on my spine. Oh, well, I knew that was going to be a problem, but I was not prepared for what was coming next. And that would be 6 long seasons of winter. Because by autumn, as the leaves were changing, so was my mobility. And my pain, which had been bad, it became unbearable. So I did what anyone would do. I went to the doctor and I got an MRI. But guess what? I wasn't prepared for what they said either. Apparently, I had cracked open L4 and L5 spinal bones, and the gel that leaked out, it can dissipate into the body. Well, according to them, mine decided to become a spike. Now, there is no good place in the human body for a spike, but lodged in the sciatic nerve is a terrible place. And depending on how that spike moved, depended on my mobility. And every morning, I would check myself to see what moved. There were days where I had no use of my hands or arms. There were days where I had no legs. And there were many days where I was frozen from the chin down. So, I have to say, during the worst times in life, there are always things to be grateful for. And I was grateful for my family and friends because they never gave up on me. They brought me to every top doctor and every top specialist, and they were relentless, which I needed. And unfortunately, each doctor would take one look at my MRI and say, "I'm sorry, I don't want to operate on you." And then they would get out their prescription pads and they would write me a prescription, and I had everything. They gave me Valium. They gave me Scalaxin, which is a muscle relaxer, and every muscle relaxer you could think of. They gave me every hydrocodone, morphine, Vicodin. I was my own local pharmacy. But sadly, nothing worked. And no matter what combination I took, things just got worse. And what we found out later was that on the days where my hands worked, I was actually taking Valium, let's say Scalaxin, and for the fun of it, Vicodin, every 20 minutes because the pain was so bad in my head, I thought the 4 to 6 hours had elapsed. So, it was an absolute nightmare. And it was around that time that I said to my husband, if the last doctor says no, you are going to have to smother me with a pillow. Of course, he said he couldn't do that. But the thing was, I didn't want to die. But I didn't feel like I had any choices. I had no quality of life. The pain was unbearable. And quite frankly, I was a burden on everybody, even though they would never say that. So I did what I could to keep my spirits up because I am an optimist. So I would, on the days my hands worked, I would write. I wrote a novel, and I finished the business plan and financial performa for a company my family was trying to purchase before I fell. And I waited. And then a miracle happened. And my parents came to me and said, we found a top surgeon who has worked on the best Chicago sports stars. Bulls, Bears, Blackhawks, Cubs, Sox, you name it. This guy's worked on it. Okay, well, guess what? My stupid spike is not going to be a problem for this guy. So I was so excited. And we get to the appointment, and he took a look at my MRI and said no. I was devastated. No, I was crushed. So I burst into tears, and I begged because this was my hope. So he said, all right, honey, I'll tell you what I'll do. I will operate. But you will be in intensive care for a minimum of 9 days, and I will not promise that you will ever walk again. Okay, let's do it. I was so excited because something is better than nothing, right? Let's go. But my parents each took my shoulders and dragged me out of there and said no, they would find a better way. Well, days turned to weeks, weeks turned to months, and my long winter continued. One after another, each doctor said no. And one day, we were at a top surgeon, and he looked at my MRI and said, whoa, that is a huge hunkin' piece. What do you say we take that out this Saturday? What? You could have knocked my family over with a feather. So I cannot tell you how excited I was, but as the days got closer, I was terrified. So my dad said that he thought I was growing feathers and turning into a great big chicken, which he was. He was right, I was. But I had all these doctors' voices in my head, and I was so worried. What if they were right? What if I was in intensive care for weeks? What if I never walked again? What if the pain never left? What if I was a burden forever? And the fear and panic just kept rolling. And then I stopped myself, and I remembered a phrase that I've leaned on a good portion of my life. And that is, courage is not the absence of fear. It's action in the face of it. So I grabbed onto that sentence, and I held on, and I said to myself, I haven't died yet. There's a reason, and I will walk again. And I did. And I have to say, that Sunday morning, after the surgery, when I woke up, I was petrified. And I did my morning, my movement, and I shook, and my hands worked. And I thought, okay. And then my legs worked. And I got up out of that bed. And I danced around the room like a Christmas elf. I felt amazing. And then Dr. Brown walked in and started yelling at me, so I got back in bed. When he sat down, he told me that was the largest piece he had ever removed from a spine. And I was grateful. And I said, thank you. Now send me home. And of course he said, absolutely not. But I put on my attorney hat. And I said, Doc, I do not want to get a virus or a cold here. I do not want to cough or sneeze with this giant hole in my back. And this is the best I have felt in a year and a half. Please let me go home. And he did. And I left that hospital in less than 24 hours of that surgery. Now, unfortunately for me, I also made the choice. It wasn't a conscious choice, but I decided to stop taking all medications. And that was really stupid. And later, when I talked to the doctor, he yelled at me again. He liked to yell at me. I did a lot that he really appreciated. And I'm going to say to everybody, taper down, do it the right way. But in my defense, at that moment, all I wanted was to be clear. I just wanted my life back. And I had been a zombie for a year and a half, and I wanted to come home 100%. So I spent the winter and the spring mostly sitting on the floor, sick as a dog. So sick. And I shook, I was nauseous, I had headaches, and quite frankly, I also had been tasting like I had been sucking on metal, and I have no idea what that is, but it happened. But even that passed. And it took 2 years, and I had to have a second spinal surgery. But I finally reached summer, and I am standing here in front of you fully functional. And it was a miracle. Oh. I finished that novel, and the bank loved the business plan and financials, and my family got that business. And I finally understood what my grandmother told me when I was a little girl. She had sat me down and said, Barbie, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. Now I know what that meant. And she was right. And you know what else I learned? I learned that in all the times I've faced death in my many seasons of life, I am still here for a reason. And I truly believe that reason is to help as many people as I can and to share my voice and my stories with as many people that that will listen. And I have turned into an empowerment coach, a motivational speaker, and I am a survivor. In the great words of the French philosopher and author Albert Camus, in the depth of winter, I learned that within me, there is an invincible summer. And I believe that everyone has that. And I am so grateful to be here sharing that message with you. Thank you.
Wow, what an incredible talk. That was Barbie Ray with Seasons of Transformation from Paralysis to Empowerment. Barbie brought such a joyful energy to our event, and she was such a professional throughout the entire process. In fact, during Barbie's performance, one of the guests in our studio audience got a little dizzy, fell down, causing a bit of a commotion. We had to pause production while tending to our guest, who thankfully was okay after a bottle of water and a little break. Barbie picked right up where she left off and did not miss a beat. And we're so proud of her perseverance through this unfortunate incident. Thank you so much, Barbie, for being part of the Speak family and for taking our stage.
This is Fred P. Bannon III, the builder and one of the co-leaders here at Speak. Our second speaker for this episode is Malcolm Grissom. In his captivating talk titled Dancing with Storms, A Warrior's Journey to the Rainbow Connection, Malcolm shares his transformative struggle with personal storms and his inspiring journey towards finding emotional resilience. Mesmerized by a thunderstorm, Malcolm later confronts a life-altering challenge when diagnosed with Ray's syndrome, a rare and deadly childhood disease. Despite facing a difficult recovery and bullying at school, Malcolm finds solace and strength in his stepfather's encouragement. Embracing his circumstances, he persists in pursuing his passion, particularly running, despite initial setbacks. Through resilience and unwavering determination, Malcolm transforms into a true warrior, ultimately discovering the emotional rainbow that connects the season of his life. His powerful narrative serves as a testament to the triumph of the human spirit from adversity. From Speak Seasons, which took place during our first holiday party on December 14th at our headquarters in Farmingdale, here is Malcolm with his talk, Dancing with Storms, A Warrior's Journey to the Rainbow Connection.
Why are there so many songs about rainbows and what's on the other side? When I see a rainbow after a storm, I think of cleansing, a new beginning, hope. What do you see? What do you think of when you see a rainbow? Rainbows are also connections through the seasons, not only the atmospherical seasons, but also our personal seasons. Because just like the atmospherical seasons, we experience the bliss of spring, the joy and happiness when life seems like it's going just our way, and then the laughter and the relaxation of summer, and then the cold and dark season of winter. Those times when life seems like it's just cramming us down, it's stepping on us. It seems like there's no end. And it's during these times that if we can find that emotional rainbow, it will transition us to our next season. What's so amazing that keeps us stargazing? When I was 7, I witnessed my first dry thunderstorm. I was on summer vacation with my father. We were driving through Nevada desert. It was dusk. The lightning lit up the sky, and the loud claps of thunder shook the car. Don't be worried, Malk. It's okay. We're actually in the safest place we could be. The car's rubber tires will keep us safe. I'm not worried, Dad. I'm excited. I love just watching the thunder and the lightning dance across the sky. Now, during the school years, I grew up in and spent my time in Hawaii with my mom and my stepdad. My home life was full of storms. I had the most fortunate mother, the greatest mother of all. I called her Hurricane Mama. And she constantly reminded me, I brought you into this world. I can take you out and make another just like you. I always looked at the bright side, though. In Hawaii, I love to run. And back in Hawaii, I was known as the Hawaiian Forrest Gump. When people saw me running, they'd say, "Run, Malcolm, run!" And I would run and I would say, "Hey, my mama told me life was like a box of macadamia nuts. It tastes better with beer." One day I was a 9-year-old life of the party, and the next I was lifeless. I woke up in the hospital, and I couldn't talk, couldn't walk. I could barely move my finger. And I heard the doctors tell my parents, "Your son has Reyes syndrome. It attacked his brain and liver cell. He may never walk again." Never walk again, I thought. But I'm only 9. I remembered a quote from a book my father read to me during his divorce. Fate whispered to the warrior, "You cannot withstand the storm." But the warrior whispered to fate, "I am the storm." And I knew I couldn't give up. I wasn't ready to give in to the storm. And my recovery process was long and slow and very arduous. I had acupuncture almost every day. I had extensive physical and speech therapy. And then finally, I was able to stand on my own and balance and communicate by grunting. "Ah! Ah!" And of course, that's when Mom said, "Okay, now you can walk and talk. It's time for you to go back to school." And she put me in the same class that I was in before. So now my friends didn't see me as that kickball champion, the class clown from just a year earlier. But to them, I was a 10-year-old version of Frankenstein's monster. This time of my life was very hard and long, but my stepfather noticed my wanting to revert into my own shell, and my stepfather suggested that I reconnect with the passions that I had before my illness. So I tried out for the T-ball team. but was met with rejection because I was a liability. I tried out for the track and field team. Again, rejection, liability. And that's the first time I heard that song, Rainbow Connection. And I remembered my dad's quote and what the warrior said, I am the storm. And it occurred to me that I don't have to withstand the storm in order to see my rainbow. I am the storm. And so the next day, I went back to the track and I just started running. I ran. I didn't need anyone's permission. And I kept I kept telling myself, run, Malcolm, run. And eventually, the coach saw me and wore down and let me on his team. Because I had become the storm. And so it's during these seasons, these dark seasons especially, that we need to look for and find these emotional rainbows. Because if I could do this, you can too. What's so amazing that keeps us stargazing? You have the power. You are the storm. Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me.
That was Malcolm with his powerful talk titled Dancing with the Storm, a warrior's journey into the rainbow connection. Thank you, Malcolm, for your incredible energy. It was fun having you taking the speak stage and sharing your inspiring story of resilience and triumph over adversity. Your journey served as a beacon of hope for all of us, and we look forward to carrying your message of strength and perseverance. Our final speaker for this episode is Robert Valley Jr. Robert Valley Jr. is a civil rights attorney and the father of a son with autism. In his talk titled Autism Dad Esquire, he shares his journey of navigating the complexities of parenting a neurodiverse child, while at the same time building a successful law practice dedicated to defending the rights of individuals facing adverse treatment due to their disabilities. Join us as Robert opens up about his challenge and triumph in balancing parenthood with advocacy. From Speak Neurodiversity, which took place on November 17th in Port Washington, co-produced by the Nicholas Center, here is Robert Valley Jr. with his talk titled Autism Dad Esquire.
It's March 1996. I'm an assistant district attorney for Queens County in the Supreme Court Trial Bureau. I've worked my way through the other bureaus till now I'm a trial assistant. My wife Jill is 20 weeks pregnant with our first child. She's the vice president of training at a bank here on Long Island. On March 12th, 1996, while in the lunchroom of that bank, she suffers a sudden death cardiac arrest, flatline. As awful as that sounds, and I assure you it was quite awful, the next events, orchestrated by a series of people, saved her life and the life of our son. There were 3 EMTs in the lunchroom that day who recognized what was happening and immediately started CPR. a 911 call went out, and the Melville Volunteer Fire Department's advanced life support truck, which was already pulling out of the station, was rerouted to the bank because a 29-year-old pregnant woman in cardiac distress takes precedent. They got there within 4 minutes of the 911 call. They had with them a new device, an automated external cardioverter defibrillator. They placed it on her, and the machine said, "Press the button." They could not detect a pulse, but the machine could. And they continued to press the button. Shocked so many times at the bank, in the ambulance, and then in the hospital that she had second-degree burns on her chest and flank, a small price to pay. I was in the DA's office at the time waiting to do a hearing when I was informed that my wife had passed out at lunch and was going to North Shore Manhasset as a precaution. I arrived at North Shore Manhasset and she was not there, and I was informed she was being transferred from Central General in Plainview to Manhasset. But I had a chance to speak to a doctor from Central General, and he said, "What do you know?" I said, "I was told my wife passed out." He said, "Your wife's in extremely critical condition." I was befuddled. Why are you moving her from Central General to North Shore Manhasset if she's in extremely critical condition? He said that North Shore Manhasset has the best neonatal unit in the region. Again, not swift on the uptake. I said, why do we need a neonatal unit? He responded that we don't expect your wife to live through the night, and when she dies, we're going to take the baby. Now, my wife is a Taurus. She's very stubborn, almost obstinate. I can only think that somewhere deep inside she said, "Not today." In June of that year, June 19th, our son Robert was born. We were informed, and it became apparent, that the trauma of the cardiac arrest, the medication that they had been on, and the oxygen deprivation that he experienced had a profound impact on him. The term childhood delay or delays in childhood development were daily conversations in our house with respect to feeding, physical, processing, and eventually speech. These were times of uncertainty and kind of a crisis mode. Early intervention were constant fixtures in our home from Robert's age of 2 months to 5 years. He received feeding therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy, special education, and eventually speech. We had been informed that a childhood delay in development early on, while it may not we were informed that a childhood delay in development early on may not look like much at the time, but because development is an inverted pyramid, missing a block on the bottom could have a dramatic impact of the blocks on top. I'm not sure when it happened, but there was a moment of transformation when we said we were not going to listen to these people who told us that Robert would not do this and Robert would not do that. We decided that we would never say what if. There was not going to be a day, years or decades in the future, where we were going to say, what if we did? Robert had a processing delay. His brain was unable to tell his body how to motor plan. We enrolled him in jiu-jitsu. The repetition of doing the various moves and forms had his body teach his brain how to move and give him confidence in how to move. Robert had anxiety and attention issues. We enrolled him in biofeedback training. We enrolled him in visual integration training, only to learn that Robert could not learn visually. He could only learn auditory. He was then taught grade school, high school, and college. He has an associate's degree with honors, verbally. I'd like to say us, but it was mostly my wife, Jill, who taught him his lessons day after day, year after year. Now, for me, I left the DA's office and went into private practice. The fields that I practice in are employment discrimination, civil rights, and constitutional law. I'd like to think that the experiences that we had in raising our son and seeing how he and other people with disabilities are treated shaped me and shaped the way my firm operates. Everyone at my firm is incredibly proud of the work that we do and the fact that we get to help those people who have been marginalized by society, people who sometimes don't have the ability to advocate for themselves. Today, my firm still practices those fields. My wife, Jill, has a career in village government in which she's doing a fantastic job and is well loved by everyone. And my son, Robert, is in the Nicholas Center. Robert is thriving at the Nicholas Center. He is working with both neurodiverse and neurotypical people in a productive business here in Port Washington, where he's giving back to the community and the community gives back to him. Together, we share our love of Formula One racing and Premier League football. I'm incredibly proud of the work that my son has put in to get to this point. The thousands of hours of therapy, the work that he does now, and I'm incredibly excited for the future. Thank you.
Wow, what an incredible and inspiring talk by Robert Valley Jr. Robert, thank you for your journey, thank you for your insight, and thank you for your heartfelt and enlightening talk, reminding us all of the importance of advocacy and understanding in supporting neurodiverse individuals and their family. It was an incredible journey collaborating with you in the Nicholas Center, and we look forward to sharing and championing your message. By the way, your son is incredible. That does it for this episode of the Speak Podcast. I am Fred P. Bannon III, the builder and one of the core leaders here at Speak. Join us again next week where we highlight 3 of our published speakers for another episode. See you then. The Speak Podcast is brought to you by Launchpad 516 Studios. Executive produced by Fred P. Banning,
Jason Martin,
and George Andriopoulos. Our theme song, Champions Day, is by Lupus Nocti. Incidental music, Melting Places, is by Andreas Cantu. Music and sound effects licensed through Epidemic Sound. The Speak Podcast is hosted with Podbean.
Make sure to subscribe to this feed wherever podcasts are available and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts while you're at it. Follow Speak at Speak_event on Twitter and at Speak Event on all other social media platforms.
Visit our website, speakevent.com, for upcoming events, channel partner, sponsorship, and Speak at Work opportunities.
And follow all the great podcasts produced by Launchpad 516 Studios.